So let's go on to try number 3. I'm going to continue with the squared loss, but now I'm going to define my model as another function, not a sine function, but now called a logistic function of the same W transpose X Z intermediary variable. And the intuition is as follows. So for binary targets, there's really no reason to predict values outside of 0 and 1 or outside of -1 and 1 range. And so we're going to squash our predictions into 0 and 1 using a function which is known as the logistic function. And this is a sigmoidal or an S-shaped function. So what does that model now look like? Again, as before, we have our intermediary variable. It's just Z is equal to W transpose X. Now, instead of saying Y is equal to sine of Z, we're saying Y is equal to sigma of Z, which is defined as 1 over 1 plus e to the power of negative Z. That's just a definition of the function. We'll see that. We'll see how that looks like shortly. We're going to perform the same two-step process. I'm going to do regression, and then once I have the weights, I'm going to use that for classification. Yes, again, two-step process. So what does Y is equal to sigma of Z look like? Let's try to just guesstimate the shape of the plot. So let's say that I have Z is equal to 0, Z is going to positive infinity, and Z is going to negative infinity. What are the values of Y? Start with the easy case. What is the value of Y for Z equals 0?
0.5.
Okay, so that would be 1 over 1 plus e to the 0, negative 0. That's 1 over 2, or 0.5. What if Z goes to positive infinity?
1.
Right, that would be 1 over 1 plus 0 is equal to 1. What about that goes to negative infinity?
0.
That would be 1 over 1 plus infinity, which tends to 0. Okay, of course, the 3 points is not enough to draw a complex function, but just for the sake of illustration, as this goes to positive infinity, we have the point 1 somewhere here. As it goes to negative infinity, we have the point 0, so somewhere here, tending towards. And then at 0, we have the point 0.5. So you can imagine there's some function in between, or maybe something that looks a bit more smooth like that. Right? And so this is what our S-shaped sigmoidal function would look like for some parameters that go into Z. Used in this way, our sigma is known as what is called an activation function. So we have Z is equal to sigma of Y is equal to sigma of Z. This here is known as the logit. This here is known as the activation function, and that is just the output. And Y, being a function of Z and the activation function, is a smooth function of the inputs X and the weights W. And it's, in a sense, it's a smooth and differentiable alternative to our sine function. What does that mean? So if I show you what the sine function was, the sine function was something that looks like this. Right? And now I'm giving you a smooth alternative to it, which to some extent approximates the sine, but is now differentiable everywhere. To make sure we've all fully understood what it looks like, this was just the plot from the previous slide. So I have Y is equal to sigma of W1x plus W0. That's 1 over 1 plus e to the negative W1x minus W0. For the values that you see here, we get this particular form of the sigmoid function. They're all S-shaped, but it's really about, do we squish or do we expand the S function, or do we shift it in any way? So the simple case is, if I, for instance, decrease my weight, my W1, that gets applied to x, then in a sense, I'm expanding the S shape. You can see that it's expanded out. Or if I keep my W1 at the same value, but I shift my bias, then you can see that I've moved to the right. I've moved my S shape to the right. It's always going to be an S-shaped function whose width and also bias is determined by the weights that I have, and the weights are the W0 and W1. And as I mentioned on the previous slide, if I take the value of W1 to be a very large value, then I'm going to be squishing it until I very much approximate just the max function. Or sorry, the sine function that we have. Now, in the extreme case of when W1 goes to infinity, we said that the sigmoid function is approximating a sine function. And we've already looked at the sine function, and we said it has two problems. The first one is that it's discontinuous at 0, so gradients are undefined, but also on either one of the 0 or 1 tails, the gradient is 0, and so gradient descent updates won't apply. So you may imagine that one of the problems with the sigmoid function is also the same, and that is that we have small gradients near our tails, right? If I continue this tail, then these areas are going to have very small gradients. So if I somehow end up there, it's going to be really difficult to get out of. But also that, okay, my slides aren't showing again, right? So there's going to be small gradients near tails, but also that this function, when you put it into the squared loss, is actually not convex in our weights W. So we run into the problem of global and local optima again. So it's one step forward compared to the sine function that we had. We can still somewhat in some regions apply gradient descent and get our updates to work, but it's still not convex, and so there's no guarantee of global optimality here. So for our final attempt, what we're going to do is we're going to build on the intuition that's written here on the slide, which is one of the other issues with this approach, is that the combination of model and loss doesn't really tell us anything about the confidence in our predictions. And maybe we can use that as a guide for our next and final approach. That is that for binary targets, not only did we say we want our values to be between 0 and 1 because there's no reason for it to be outside, but if we're now forcing it to be between 0 and 1, perhaps we can go one step further and interpret the value of y as the estimated probability of being class 1 or being class 0, whatever convention you want to call it. Right? And the reason for this being important is that being 99% confident of the wrong answer is, of course, worse than being 90% confident of the wrong answer, right? And we should somehow figure out how to penalize these two differently. So let's look at why this is a problem with previous approaches. So let's say my true target is t is equal to 0 as before. I'm using the two-step process again as before, where I have a squared regression loss 1/2 of y minus t, and my y is sigma of w transpose x plus w naught, which is equal to 1/1 plus e to the negative w transpose x minus w naught. Okay, so what is the value of the squared loss for different points in y? Can someone help me out here? This is the loss. What is the value of the loss for y is equal to 0?
0.
That is 1/2 of 0 minus 0 squared is equal to 0. What about 0.9? You work that out. I think that comes out to 0.405, something like this. And you work this out, this comes out to 0.5. So these are the different values of loss, right? But I want to draw your attention to this, the fact that for the case of y is equal to 1, where the true target is equal to 0, this means I am absolutely certain of the wrong prediction. And I get a loss of 0.5. Whereas if I'm 90% certain of the wrong solution, I get something very close to that. So I'm not really differentiating between these two uncertainties. I'm wrong in both cases. In one case, I just have a bit of doubt. In one case, I have absolutely no doubt. And the loss doesn't really change too much between them. Okay, so that's point number is, if we were to actually compute the gradients, what would the gradients look like? You can use the chain rule and write out the loss with respect to W, decompose it into the different parts. And actually what it turns out is, you can work out the math on your own time. If you have questions, feel free to ask on Discord. It turns out that the loss, the gradient of the loss with respect to the W's is going to be approximately 0. And once again, that means that the gradients being 0 is that the update rule won't apply. But besides that as well, we're not really differentiating between the different values of loss for different confidence levels when we're 90% wrong or 100%, 90% confident of being wrong and 100% confident of being. So this is the problem with our third attempt, which was y is equal to the sigmoid of W transpose X, and we use the squared loss. The final attempt is use the same model, but now we're going to define something called the log loss or the cross entropy loss. Someone mentioned this last lecture. I think it was Mustafa. And that loss looks something like this. So for t equals 0, like the example on the previous slide, it looks like this curve here. And for t equals 1, it looks like the other curve. So depending on what your target is, it's going to follow either of these curves. That's what the loss that's what the loss looks like, and we can write it compactly into this form here. So it turns out that it might seem a bit complicated, but really what it's saying is that if t is equal to 0, then that goes to 0, so all of this half goes away. And if t is equal to 1, then that goes to 0, so all of the second half goes away. So it's just one compact notation for both of these different losses in one formula. So let's try to measure again, as we did for the previous slide, the loss for these different values. Just plugging in. So if I have y is equal to 0, 0.9, and 1, what I get for my loss is at 0, I'd be looking at this part and this part. So that would be a value of 0. This would be a value of 1. And this would be a value of positive infinity. Oh, okay, we're making progress now, right? So now if I'm 90% confident in an incorrect prediction, I get a loss of 1. But as I tend to become 100% confident in that wrong prediction, I'm getting a loss that tends to infinity. Good. So one step forward. The other question was not just about the absolute value of the loss, but also what? The gradients. So if we then follow the same procedure as before, now we actually get an expression for the gradient, which you'll probably see a couple more times in today's lecture, which comes out to be the product of x, our input data, times the residual, the difference between our prediction and t. And that is certainly not 0. So two benefits here. Not only is there a difference between the losses, which is significant, but also the gradients are much larger than 0, meaning that actually the update step is going to work for us. No, is everything crystal clear or too much? Thumbs up, thumbs down? I don't see most videos, so only of those that I see. Thumbs up? Good. Good. Thank you, Hamza.